It takes a brave and independent mindset to go tiny. If you are trying to figure out your tiny pivot, this podcast is here to inspire and connect you with the other unconventional, gritty, inspirational people within this community. I am Laura Lynch, your tiny house friend and host. On this show, we are always going to come back to money because as a financial planner, this is the question I hear the most. How do I make this work for me financially? Well, that's my jam, so jump in, let's go. New episodes drop every Thursday. Well, Julie Jenkins, welcome to Less House, More Moolah podcast. I am so thrilled that we get to have this conversation about all the things, since you and I could talk forever, but certainly about your minimalism, your container home, how that it has allowed you to focus on your passion-based work. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Laura, for having me. I'm super excited to have this discussion with you. Yeah, you and I both share very similar passions, so this will be a fun recording.
Yeah, for sure. So to get us started, why don't you introduce yourself and share a bit about your tiny living journey?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Julie. I am the owner and founder of Redesign Wealth Planning. It is a fee-only financial firm that focuses on women. So my tiny living journey, gosh, I like to say that it started back 30 years ago. They didn't call it tiny living back then, but we started off, my husband and I and our family, in a little 800 square foot house. And we gradually, moved up in square footage like most Americans do. But really kind of honed in on the tiny living about 4 years ago. So we bought some property in 2019 and we were going to build a smaller house, but still kind of traditional. Well, with the building prices just increasing, we kind of was just really getting clear on what our future wanted to look like and what our values were. And so we pushed pause on that building plan, and we had intended on during the building, the construction, we were going to live in our travel trailer because we love to travel, and so we had it. So we thought, well, we'll live in here on the property until the build. And when we pushed pause, we just thought, okay, well, we're going to stay a little bit longer in the trailer and figure this out. And so it really just gave us the freedom to be able to kind of toss around some ideas and figure out what we wanted to do. And we had, watched all the tiny shows on YouTube and was very, kind of up to date on tiny living. And so we decided, let's jump and go for it. And it just, it was the right fit at the moment. So that's kind of, how we got into tiny living.
So let's talk about the container homes specifically. So how did you first become aware of container homes? Why did you choose that format? Talk more about that.
So I think the first time that we had seen container was on probably a YouTube channel. Very interesting. We loved the kind of tradition of the minimalist industrial look. And we thought, what a fun project that would be. We had a guy in our area that sold shipping containers. We went and looked at them, priced them, put our eyes on it, figured that this would be a good choice. And we continued after we saw that first container home. We continued just to kind of look, and it's just endless. You get on Airbnb and there was tons of, specific shipping containers that you could Airbnb. And so we just really started kind of scouring the internet and really looking into what it would be like to build that out.
Well, before we started recording, you and I were talking about your kind of future long-term plans and how you were being so intentional about your home being sort of mobile or movable. So let's talk about how it is that the container homes specifically fit into your long term vision, because we were chatting before and you have maybe plans to move across the country. And so you were thinking about what the property was going to do for you long term, and talk about how the container format fit into your long term plan.
Yeah. So sure. So yes, we were very intentional about purchasing the property. We wanted something rural. We wanted something that had no restrictions because we had intended on building what we call a barnuminium here. It's really just a kind of a metal building that we build out. So we already knew that we weren't going to do something super traditional. So we wanted to make sure that there were no restrictions here. And when we pushed pause on that, um, we were very intentional about keeping a very small footprint on the property. We kind of really, like I said earlier, we got super clear on what our future looked like for retirement. And we knew that were going to be relocating once my husband retires. So to keep the footprint very small, we knew that we wanted to do something tiny. And with this shipping container, although it's not as mobile as other tiny homes, we just thought that you know, if when we put the property up for sale, this just didn't fit someone else's taste or desire, we could have it moved. And we could have it moved to, relocated to where we're going to be as well, or we could, have it, put for sale and someone else could move it to another piece of property. So we were really intentional about what type of tiny home that we were going to put here and the footprint that we were going to take up on the property for resale value and resale purposes mainly.
Yeah, it's so interesting because the container is more like a site build, right? I think there probably are builders out there who build out containers and then bring them in and place them on your property. But they're probably more, I would say, builders in the modular space, right? Where they're building a more traditional type stick built home that they bring in on site. So the container provided a box for you to build out yourself. And then you knew that it is somewhat portable. And if it needed to be moved, it could, but it wasn't like your first intention to move it. So I think there's such a great spectrum in the tiny house world, on the portability spectrum and the DIY spectrum and the, site built versus offsite. My tiny home had to be on wheels because it got moved across the country and didn't get built on site because we did not have the time to be on site to build it. So I love that the containers serve that purpose and also stayed within your interest of that industrial sort of barn dominium, metal building kind of construction vibe. I think that's just such an amazing fit that you landed on.
Yes, it has really worked well for us. And it turned out, so much better than we had imagined and sketched out and pictured in our head. And yes, it's kind of that industrial on the outside, but light and airy feel on the inside.
So cool. So you mentioned that your land is unrestricted and that you were very focused on finding rural land that you could live on your RV. And I think that in the legalization world that we're in and trying to figure out where people can park, especially when you get into, say, shed homes or container homes, um, unless you get, engineers involved, it's often useful to find land that is unrestricted. So what did you learn through that process about finding land that you could build something unique on?
Yeah, great question. My husband loves pastime. If he's not fishing or hunting or doing something outside, he's looking for land. It's just one of his hobbies. So it did take us quite a while to find exactly what we were looking for. I think he probably spent 2 years looking for this property. And you're right, it is quite the challenge because there are most of the time restrictions of some sort on property. So when we would find a piece that we really liked, there was a restriction that it was a non-negotiable for us. So to be able to find something that absolutely had no restrictions on it, we really did have to go a little farther out than what probably we wanted to at the time, although it has been quite refreshing to be, you know, as rural as we are. But with going out, it does really open up opportunities for you to be able to do pretty much anything that you want to do on your property and not have to have the building restrictions and meeting the codes that you would have to meet if you were in the city limits.
Yeah, and that helps with the process of, especially in a DIY, it just reduces the cost of, you're still going to obviously build a good quality home. It's just a matter of how many people do you have to come check off
Sure.
on all of the steps of it, right?
Absolutely. Well, because, I mean, there's just so much red tape and we've done several different endeavors. In fact, we had bought some property and developed it into a subdivision, and everybody wants a piece of the pie, so everybody gets $100 here or $1,000 here. So we knew that to be able to keep our cost very low, that we would definitely need to be somewhere where it was unrestricted.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you bring up low cost. So let's talk about the financial purpose of your tiny living setup, because I know that was a huge part of it, right? You all are headed towards a retirement date. And it has also allowed you to make a career pivot, just on Less Has More Mola, we hear so many stories of people living unconventional lives. Each of them is literally building their alt American dream. Are you tired of putting your dreams on hold because of money? Well, let's fix it. I have a two-part offering that is here to help you. First, I'm going to give you access to my financial freedom calculator so that you'll understand your numbers and have a tangible starting point. This is free. And then, second, we'll book a session to figure out your finances so that you can live your alt American dream as soon as possible. This is paid. Why am I giving you something for free? Because I'm passionate about empowering people to choose an unconventional path. So let's work together to figure out money so that you will know that you've officially taken action on your plans. This offering is for you if you're unsure of your cost of living or how much savings you might need. You don't know what money move to make next. You dream of an unconventional life built on your terms. You're seeking a permanent solution and not a one-time motivational boost. You want to learn about money from someone who shares your interest in breaking away from the norm. So what do you think? Are you tired of starting sentences with someday when I? Then go to altamericandream.com and get the financial freedom calculator. So I love that you brought up the cost and the affordability. So let's talk, since we're both financial planners, let's talk a little bit more about how the tiny living really served a financial purpose for you. So talk about the financial purpose of your tiny living setup.
Yeah, so the financial purpose, number one, was just affordability. We wanted to be able to pay cash for the build as we went along. So we were weekend warriors, and did this, on our downtime on the weekends. But affordability was number one because, as mortgages are just traditional mortgages are just kind of not a thing for tiny homes. So we knew that, but we did want to, take the burden off of having a mortgage. So affordability was number one, for that. Also, as we both are financial planners, we plan, with our clients for future retirement or future major purchases, or whatever it is that they value. And so we really got clear about what our future in retirement wanted to look like, and we both really value land and acreage, and experiences and exploration over square footage. So, as we went into this container build, we kept that in mind. We kept our future in mind. And so to be able to do something that costs significantly less than what a traditional home would be was our number one driver behind, the decision that we made to go tiny. Most people think that you're sacrificing by living tiny, and that's just not the case, and quite the opposite for us. We really value that, as we talked before, that minimalistic lifestyle, that simplicity. And it just really does open up the door for other opportunities in, travel, or, some of our other core values, which is square footage. Living square footage just is not one of those for us.
I feel like you're singing to the choir over here, Julie.
Yes, we do. We do have a lot of the same passions. I know.
So, a lot of folks, when they think about retirement, they think about this idea of sort of, buying their dream home, or, their dream lifestyle, whatever that is. And oftentimes that's about, what the home looks like. And, they've worked really hard over many decades in order to achieve their dream home. So how is it that your dream home is not that larger square footage? Why is your dream, or why is your mindset, do you think, around minimalism and tiny living? What in your past made you value that, do you think?
Yeah, well, as I said before, we just really had to get really clear about what our values and what our goals were. And, we just don't have an endless budget to go into retirement. We will live on a budget in retirement, and we have to be honest with ourselves about that. And we have to plan for, that long life. My husband will be 55 when he retires. And so that is going to be a very long retirement for him. I can still continue to work. I love what I do. But we do have to plan for, 90, 95. We will live that long. And so we just had to get really honest. And we knew that we were going to be living on a budget in retirement. And we just wanted to be able to have the funds to be able to do the things that are really important for us. And and tiny living, like I've said before, gives us the freedom to be able to open the doors to other opportunities.
So, Julie, tell me how it is that you came to value. Most people, they really, maybe their default, right, is to get to retirement in their dream home, which is, larger. Maybe it's with a pool, maybe it's in a gated community, or maybe it's in a golf community, or whatever their particular lifestyle dream is. So why do you think your lifestyle dream is around minimalism and living somewhere rural and doing something different? How do you think you came to that tiny living mindset?
Or, well, fortunately for us, we have had the opportunity to live in all size homes. We, built the dream home, and we loved it. But as we just kind of went on with life, we realized that square footage was just not important to us. We absolutely love to travel. We love to explore different destinations, different cultures. That is on the top of our list. So, with that being said, we don't plan to be at home very much, in retirement. And so having the square footage to heat and cool and pay the insurance on, and having the pool, just did not meet and align with our values of being able to have that freedom to live in that exploration lifestyle. And so, and each to their own, and everybody has that different dream for retirement. And some are very content with the square footage and the traditional, retirement destination. But for us, that just was not, that's not our motivating driver.
And so you mentioned also expecting a long retirement. And there are lots of us out there that are trying to figure out, hey, how do I, maybe get my corporate exit and find a path where I can still do really meaningful work, but I can do it more on my terms. So has this tiny living setup enabled you to transition your life in a way that allows you to do meaningful work and also to have a little bit more financial security?
Yes, very good point. This tiny living has been able to open up opportunities that, we would not been able to explore otherwise. For instance, kind of getting debt free and we've just kind of been on the path of financial independence for quite some time now. We're not quite there yet, but it's still a goal. And if we had not pursued this lifestyle, I would not have had the opportunity to pivot my career and take that sabbatical that I needed and pursue financial planning.
So it sounds like that there has been a lot of things that have come out of your tiny living journey. And earlier you mentioned, expecting a long life. And that's definitely something that's been on my radar. Like, how do I make sure that I have some financial security? Because I plan to live to 100 or whatever. So how do I have that financial security and yet also have the quality of life that I want now, which involves doing work that I'm passionate about? So it sounds like that you've used tiny living to strike that balance in your life. So would you say that's true? Tell us more about that.
Yes, absolutely. If we had not pursued this lifestyle, if we would have continued on the path of building that somewhat traditional home, it just would not have opened up the doors and the opportunity for us to be able to prepare for the future and for that long retirement. And also, it would have not I would have not been able to pivot my career like I did a couple of years ago and take that sabbatical that I needed, and pursue meaningful work. And I am very passionate about that. The paycheck that I get every month is not as important as being able to help someone and really being passionate about what I do. And we have along the way, we have actually, we've done that. My husband actually wasn't supposed to retire at 55, but this tiny living lifestyle allowed us to put some funds that we had, saved up for different reasons, and allowed us to save additional so we could make some really hard decisions, but also aligned, with our values, and just to be able to start that retirement way earlier than what we had planned or he had planned. So yeah, so it's tiny living, I think, really does free up some extra cash, and that's why I love your podcast. Uh, Less house, more moolah. It really is. I mean, you're paying a big traditional house mortgage, and it takes a good chunk of your income. And so if you can take that and you can repurpose those funds into something that is more aligned with your values. And I just think it is definitely alternative way to pursue a lifestyle.
Yep. I mean, I don't know what else to say, but I agree. I agree. I agree. Awesome. So, as you're moving forward, you are, coming out of this pivot and into now working with folks in the same way that I work with people. So share with us who you're out there to serve and how can people track you down.
Yeah, sure. Well, I spent 16 years in women's medicine, so women are my passion. I love everything women, and really my mission is to come alongside them, build them up, and educate them, encourage them, empower them on their journey, whatever that looks like. Because I've been there myself. I've gotten out of the credit card debt, and I've gotten, I've gotten myself on track. So there is no judgment and shame. Everybody has their financial journey, and it looks messy sometimes. So my passion really is to just walk alongside these women, and we do this together, and we build the wealth for them, and we kind of, and that's the whole purpose of naming my firm Redesign Wealth, because it doesn't, wealth just does not look the way that it does, and the definition is not the way that the old definition of wealth is. It really is not about the money. But it is to, figure out how we can align those funds to what really matters to that particular individual and situation. So that is my passion. That's who I help. And you can find me on my website at redesignwealth.com. And I'm on LinkedIn at Julie D. Jenkins. And then I also have Instagram, and that is Redesign Wealth Planning.
Awesome. Well, Julie, thank you so much for, just coming in here to tell me what I already know. It's so good to have that kindred spirit out there, and for
Yeah.
listeners, right, to hear from multiple people that have been able to redesign their career, redesign their living space, and redesign their entire life and their debt load and the way that they feel about their financial security through this tiny living option. More people need to hear these stories over and over again in order to, feel good about moving forward. So thanks for leading the way and for sharing your story for listeners.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. I appreciate it so much. And I feel the exact same way. Let's get the word out there.
Hey, thank you for taking the time to listen to Less House, More Moolah. I have another free resource on my website for you, the Unconventional Values Quiz. In just 2 minutes, you can pinpoint your style of freedom seeker, security guardian, adventure enthusiast, or community builder. Check it out at thetinyhouseadvisor.com. And one more thing. Podcasts don't have algorithms like social media does. They only grow by word of mouth and reviews. If this podcast is helpful to you, would you please post a review on your podcast app and tell a friend who is trying to live a values-based life? It would totally make my day.